Welcome to ROG Sidequest. Hello and happy holidays. This is our new gaming talk show where we talk about anything and everything gaming. And since the year is just about over, we are talking about our favorite games of 2020. So yes, this is a subjective conversation about what we think is the best. And I guarantee you we are not going to have the same opinions. But let's kind of jump down the line and do some introductions. So I'll start with me. Guys, hi, I'm Jake. I create videos here. I stream every Friday playing various games here on Twitch. And I make this podcast as well as another technology podcast where we go into deep dive conversations about everything that we make here at ROG. Jeff, you're up.
Hey, folks. Well, so I am, if Jake does the videos, I do the writing, or at least part of it. I edit, all of our stuff or blog posts essentially that go up on our content marketing portals for ASUS and ROG. So, yeah.
All right, Chris.
Hey, I'm Chris. I'm in charge of the social media, or not, I guess in charge of, but I help produce the social media content that you see on Twitter, Instagram, and other social media channels.
Can't forget TikTok.
And TikTok.
And
I've been doing
TikTok.
some TikTok. I had my first one a couple weeks ago. I really enjoyed it. Pass it over to Eric.
Hey there, my name's Eric, and I have the best job. So, I get to spend hands-on time with all the best ROG hardware and write about it. I'm living
Really
the
is
dream.
the best.
I mean, I get to do that, but I just get to play games. Pretty debatable.
I think Jake's the real winner as far as.
I guess you get to
Yeah,
play
it's
games
just
for your
play
job
games.
too, though.
I do. My kids are convinced I play video games for a living.
Nice.
It's not in me to break them of that notion.
See, now as a parent, you can't be like, well, don't spend all your time playing video games. You can't make money that way.
You
I
know,
lost the moral high ground there. I lost that a while ago.
I mean, I've made a career in esports, and my older brother's a game designer. So my parents, who yelled at us about games for years and years and years, they're proud of us, to say the least. But we definitely get to throw that back in their face. All right, guys. Well, a lot of games dropped as every year, and I just want to open with the beginning of the year. I think a lot of us we're PC gamers, we're Valve fans. We have actually personally talked at length about a game called Half-Life Alyx. I know we're all big fans of it, and I think it's a nice starting point here for this conversation. So clearly the Half-Life franchise is famous and infamous all in the same, with the fact that Half-Life 3 never came out. I never thought we'd see another Half-Life game, period. And when Valve came out and was like, hey, we're making Half-Life Alyx, a new VR game. I want to ask all of you, what were your personal opinions when they made this announcement? Were you excited? Were you worried?
Chills when I got the announcement, just that we were getting anything in the Half-Life universe, and it being what we would think would be a AAA title from Valve for VR. So I was very excited, a little apprehensive, but very excited, personally.
Oh, I howled in anguish. The tears streamed down my face when I realized it was VR only. And I don't have VR yet.
Yeah, I was a little ambivalent about it at first. Like, Half-Life was a formative game for me. That was actually the first first-person shooter type title I ever played, like on a neighbor's PC. They were just like, I can't even remember now, but they were just like, here, play with this, and I was immediately hooked. And when I built my first PC for myself in like 2008, I was like, okay, first thing I have to run on this, Half-Life 2. Orange Box spent far more hours than I would care to admit in that. And it's just like, so, but yeah. And then it sort of, things tailed off, and then, Alyx came around, and, I had the VR headsets, but I was, that stuff sort of sat in my closet for a while too. And I was like, well, is it going to be good enough for me to, drag all that out again, set up all the sensors? And yes, it absolutely was.
Yes.
It was by far. I had to go back and check and see if it came out in 2020, because time has no meaning here. But
Right. It's been a long year.
It broke down so many things that I think have been obstacles for VR up until this point. And it not only, it not just a tech demo. It's not just a tech demo. It's a fully realized story where the VR headset feels essential to what you're doing and how you're experiencing that world. And yeah, there's really nothing else like it.
You know, something that I'd say about it, you're talking about how this has been a very innovative game for VR. I'd also say it's the first VR game I ever played where I felt like, you know, when I was putting that headset on, I was plugging in, like going into this place, a world that is living and breathing, and I'm part of it in this really surreal experience. It felt very sci-fi to me. Every other VR game, like you said, is more of an experience where it's like Beat Saber. I felt like I was in an arcade playing like a gimmick, like a one-off, you know, thing where it's very linear. Amazing game. Love Beat Saber, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't the same kind of immersion where I was in a world. And with Alex, the fact that you have the gravity gloves and you're pulling items to you, I would unplug after like a 3-hour session and try to pick something off the floor by making the gesture. And I felt like an idiot. I'm like, oh my God. Like, but that's how immersive it really was. No, it didn't work yet, but I'm still working on my Jedi powers. Pretty soon, I think I'll figure it out.
You just got to believe.
There are moments in that where it's just, you know, I'm not going to spoil the ending. Everybody should experience the ending for themselves and the build up to it. But like the build up and the way they pulled off the ending was just like that's going to stick with me. Yeah.
I actually cried. And it's hard for games to pull like that kind of emotion out of me, but I'm not even somebody that grew up with Half-Life. I didn't play it till like 4 or 5 years back. Maybe even less time than that, which is my fraudulence as a PC gamer. I mean, what was I doing, right? Just letting it cook, and the game aged beautifully. One of the best aging games, you know, I can imagine, because it still plays the gunplay is better than modern games, even still in Half-Life 2, in my opinion. The game just feels really good. But don't want to spoil Half-Life Alex. That's big on my list. Who else has Alex on their list? Eric, I think you're the only one that hasn't played it.
Only on a technicality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely at the top of my list.
Number one?
Yeah.
Number one. I'm gonna say number one. Hands down.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've had the original Vive since it came out, since before it came out. Actually, I had early access to it, and after a while it just started collecting dust because I wasn't finding those fully baked experiences. And in the beginning it was great. Those little, you know, Beat Saber-esque type games, you know, Space Pirate Chain are fine, but this was a story that this was the first time I really felt like I got to experience a story in a universe that I already was in. Like, I played some Star Wars little mini experiences, but those just quick and done. This was a fully fleshed out, like, as soon as I, you know, stepped off onto that rooftop where you start the game, like I was just, you know, looking around, you know, throwing stuff too, testing out the physics because it's Half-Life, but
of course,
like, just feeling like I was in City 17. Like I was there. I was a part of this universe that I was a viewer before.
Right.
Like, I was controlling Gordon, but I was really just viewing this universe from a monitor, and now I was in it. And that really did something for me. Like, it spoke to the future of VR and where it can go as far as the immersive capabilities of it. And I think that's something that we needed, especially in 2020. Like, I feel really bad for Eric having not been able to experience it, because VR is one of the few ways I can get out of the house and just freely enjoy the world, because it's VR.
You guys are making me regret. Making me regret my choice of Christmas presents here.
So
why didn't I give myself a Vive for Christmas?
Let me make you feel better, because my biggest problem with Half-Life Alex isn't Half-Life Alex. It's my Vive gives me horrible motion sickness because the refresh rate isn't really up to par. And I was playing with a 1080, so I did have some frame rate losses here and there because, you know, the graphics card wasn't exactly up to where we wanted it to be. But, you know, overall, I think I've been looking at the VR ecosystem and, you know, seeing a lot of the new devices coming out and saying, okay, the technology is really coming a long way, but I'm going to wait a little bit more before I make that upgrade in the near future.
Yeah. And it's gotten more accessible too. I think the Quest 2 really brings the it brings that experience closer for more people.
Yeah.
There's certain upgrades you might want. I haven't really looked into its ecosystem, but it's not prohibitive anymore. So
it's not, and we're getting a lot of standalone units, and like the wireless units, like having the cables on the back is not the best, especially when you're spinning around in a 3D environment. There's drawbacks, but I'm just excited that we're seeing, companies like Valve invest in like the Index, and now we've got HP with the Reverb 2, and like all these other companies are kind of stepping in and creating more HMDs, which is only going to be better for everything in VR. So Alex isn't going anywhere. When you finally make that plunge to jump into VR, you're just going to be in for a treat, because the game is 3 out of 4 people called it game of the year, right? We just said it's game of the year right now. That's 3 of us saying this is game of the year, and I agree with you.
Yeah, and like I just looking 5 years now from now, I don't think this game it's not going to age. It's not going to age badly. We're not going to look at it 5 years from now and say, oh, look at how quaint this was. It's really the control scheme. There's obviously room for the graphics to be turned up. The control scheme is adaptable to whatever you need to adapt it to, so long as we use hand controllers or even our hands eventually. So yeah, I don't think there's not anything about it that feels like a hack, basically.
Right. Yeah.
Like a hack.
Like Jake was saying earlier with Half-Life 2, like that's a game that still holds up. Like like the facial animations, the combat.
Yeah.
And I think we can apply a lot of that to Alex too. Like it's going to have that same feel to it 10 years from now, 15 years from now.
Yeah.
All right.
Definitely a classic in the making.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope we get more, and I think we will. In that line of VR games from Valve. But Eric, since you haven't played it, why don't you throw a favorite game of the year on the table for you?
Can I wade straight into the controversy?
Oh yeah, go for it.
Please do.
Because I have been itching to get on top of a rooftop and shout to the world how much fun I'm having playing Cyberpunk 2077. Now, I know this is a fresh game on the list. I haven't been playing it for months, as say Doom Eternal, but I'm having an absolute blast. It is a gorgeous game, drop dead gorgeous. I'm playing it on 4K on my huge, lovely 43-inch HDR monitor.
Jealous.
That's an ROG monitor, right?
Yeah.
That is the ROG Strix PG43UQ, and oh man, yeah, this has everything you want in a gaming monitor.
So wait, maybe he does have the better job if he's got the 43-inch version. I only have the 27-inch of that model. Come on.
But let me just give you a little tidbit about Cyberpunk that I dearly love. One thing that it does really well is it gives you this sense of place as you're sitting with people and talking with them. You think back to a game like Elder Scrolls Oblivion. I love Oblivion. You talk to somebody and their face is front and center, staring at you directly.
Yeah.
With Cyberpunk, you're sitting at a bar, you're leaning over the edge of the table, you're looking around, you're having drinks.
You get to choose if you want to take the drink first or continue the conversation. It feels really dynamic in that regard.
Absolutely. You really feel like you're having a conversation. Like I inhabit V in a way that I haven't really inhabited a character in a role-playing game for many years.
Just kind of comparing.
Eric,
go ahead.
Yeah. So I was going to say, as someone who's not played it, like we talk about the sense of place, like what is Night City like?
Oh, Night City is both like a horrifying vision of everything wrong in our culture, like transported forward like 50 years.
I love it there.
And also this mesmerizing place full of like life and vitality and people resisting the societal norms. You want to be there and you want to hate it. It kind of feels like LA in that regard.
All right,
in another 50.
We're gonna get so much. We're gonna get so much email.
I think Cyberpunk it's obviously a big talking point right now. Everybody's complaining about the bugs. It seems like most of those bugs are more console related, and I think a large number of the player base is playing this on console where they're having issues. I know my brother's playing on a modern gen console, one of the new ones, and he has experienced quite a few crashes, which is, you know, a thing. The past generation is, I mean, obviously we have to talk about the fact that it got removed from the PlayStation Store and refunds are happening. That's a big deal. That doesn't happen, right? That's pretty unheard of. But this is a PC show. We you know, we're PC gamers, and we're talking about this game on PC. I have not even had a single bug. I know there's probably plenty to discover, but the experience I've had is insanely gorgeous, insanely immersive, and Night City, like I said, is just a place I want to be in. And I haven't played that much, but I'm impressed.
Yeah, you know, the problem...
I've really enjoyed it. Oh, go ahead.
The problems that I see on PC are all fixable things, you know, just this is a company I have a relationship with. I love their Witcher games, and I've watched them lovingly take care of their products. You know, I fully expect the things that we're talking about now, we're not going to be talking about in a year or two.
So no, I played it. I've only put in about 15 hours so far, and the only bugs I've seen have been like graphical ones. Like every now and then, like Johnny Silverhand, my favorite one was he like pulled out a cigarette and then just left it floating in the air, pulls out another one, lights it, kicks back. Well, that one's just floating.
That's like, pretty funny.
You know, I literally don't like that. Those are the like, you know, Bethesda type bugs that I enjoy. Like it's just, you know, funny. But no game breaking, no crashing, nothing that's held me back. It's just been a lot of really my biggest issue with the game is not having enough time to play it.
Yeah.
But it's the kind of game that I want to sink time into. And like one of the early missions I had to ride in a car with someone, and I could have just, you know, sat there and stared at them like you were saying earlier, Eric. But I was like I'd look over and talk to him, but like I spent so much time just looking out the car window at Night City because it feels alive when you're driving through it and you're looking at it. It's a beautiful place to be and to escape to. And you're right, Eric, it does have that kind of sense of place where you're at. And it's something a little different, and I really like it. It's been fun, and I'm really hoping. What's that?
Have you gotten very far in the Takamura quest line? Have you done the quest with the parade?
I have not.
Have you seen that one yet, Jake?
No, I've played less than Chris probably. Yeah.
There is an absolute treat up ahead of you. I won't spoil the storyline, but there's one where the whole quest takes place on the streets during a gigantic parade, and it's going to knock your socks off with just how many people are crowding the streets. And these absolutely massive floats up in the air while you're doing some crazy parkour stuff and finding some snipers. It is
cool.
Nice.
Wonderful experience.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
So the one complaint I will throw on the table with the game is the gameplay isn't really that good in my opinion. The gunplay feels a little bit sluggish. It just feels, you know, not smooth and buttery the way a lot of games that we see nowadays are. When you're making an FPS, you expect really good gunplay. Now, I get it. It is an RPG as well, but I would almost say I would rather play Mass Effect 3 in terms of like a third-person shooter. It feels better than this feels like an equivalent to like a Mass Effect 2 in terms of the quality, in terms of the combat. Also, the driving on mouse and keyboard is so bad. Like it is so bad that I have several friends that literally have a controller plugged into their PC just for driving. So they pick up their controller when they're in a car, right? So a lot of people do that, and like, come on, like, you know, it seems like the controls in the game could use some love.
Well, I feel those folks because like with Grand Theft Auto 5, like any vehicle trying to control it with mouse and keyboard is just like
awful.
Yeah. Well, it's like, okay, I can start pressing buttons randomly, or I can start pressing mouse buttons randomly and moving the mouse around to figure out what controls it, or I can just reach for the controller on my desk. So
where's your ROG Chakram? Come on now.
I haven't been able to get one. I've been trying to get one.
Me too, actually.
I need to get
Chakram. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's definitely...
It would be perfect for this game.
I would just say it's forgivable.
Yeah.
If it's but yeah, I have not played it, but I'm interested now because like the games I like the most are the ones where you can really just I think Eric just said you inhabit the main character, and that's what grabs me about Fallout games, and yeah, so if that's the case here, I'm gonna have to check this out.
See, I actually hate the gameplay in Fallout as well. So if you like Fallout,
yeah,
then this is for you, because I cannot play those games because I do not like the combat.
Man,
I one thing I'm thinking with Cyberpunk 2 is I haven't put more than 15 hours into it yet, and I have seen some footage of people playing later in the game where there's more, you have different, you know, abilities, weapons and stuff, where it looks like the combat does, I don't know what to say it gets better because I haven't played it, but I think it becomes a little more different and there's a little more excitement to it. It's still going to be building off of the combat that you're already doing. So if you're not a fan of that style, then it's probably not going to get tons better. But I'm excited to see some of the abilities and stuff that I can unlock over time and how I can integrate that into my play style.
I think one of the joys of RPGs too, like Fallout, when you have stuff like VATS, it's like, oh, okay, I'm you know, you press the button and then it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm playing a game now. But it's not, I don't want to say it's immersion breaking. It's just like, okay, I'm taking control of this moment in the story in a way that's you're kind of directing it. I don't know exactly how to put it, but it's not just point, gun, and shoot like Fallout 4.
Right.
It's, you know, I don't know. And that almost in itself feels, you know, cyberpunk, which is an overused word and, you know, super cliche. I don't know a better word for it.
To cyberpunk.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, RPGs, combat in RPGs, I always expect it to be just a little bit clunky.
You know, I expect to have a measure of choice, you know.
Yeah.
Like we don't have same conversations about, say, Doom Eternal, you know. You don't play Doom Eternal and say, okay, you know, I'm gonna try out this like katana build.
Right.
I'm gonna see how that goes.
It's a different genre. Yeah.
Right.
Although I would
But in
probably be
Cyberpunk
interested in
about-
that.
But in Cyberpunk, I'm like sneaking, I'm hacking into things, I'm breaking open containers of like boxes to like fall on enemies. I'm sniping from a distance. You know, it's the level of choice I feel makes up for what I'll grant is a little bit of clunkiness in terms of the gunplay.
It's not awful. It's not irredeemable. It's better than Fallout, by a long shot even. But it's just I kind of want it to be a little bit smoother, and I don't know if that's just me being nitpicky, but overall that was my one complaint with the game. Everything else seems amazing. The immersion is incredible, and like you talked about how dynamic all the cinematics and the conversations are and your options. I'm going to use that as my segue to talk quickly about Final Fantasy VII Remastered, because this is another game that dropped early in 2020. It's an RPG that's been long waited for. When I think about the two games that have been most long waited for, it's probably Final Fantasy VII Remastered and Cyberpunk. And Final Fantasy VII Remastered is being broken up into 3 different games. If you've never played the original game, it's kind of hard for you to understand exactly how much content you're getting, but it's all Midgard. It's all stuck in that first city that you're in this game. And I'm currently playing it. I haven't beaten it yet, but it is the polar opposite of the conversations in Cyberpunk. It feels like these very anime, very like this. The girl's like, huh. Like that's like literally how she's moving, and I'm like, the graphics are so good and it looks so real.
Yeah.
And then you got Aerith that's just like flopping around like this, you know, this 12-year-old anime girl. It's like, what am I looking at? This could be so much more dynamic and like epic and realistic and, you know, human. But they chose to go like, I get retaining the original like script that the game has, like the original text. I get that. That's fine because some of it's pretty corny. But they don't have to have like Cloud doesn't need to sigh 19 times in one conversation. It's like, come on.
Pretty emo boy.
I mean, I get it, but like it's intense. Have you guys played it?
I
haven't played
have
the remake.
not.
Okay.
I never played any of the Final Fantasy
Okay.
games, which is my great shame. It's one of many sources of gamer shame.
Well, you know,
But
teach. Yeah,
it's coming to the
The
PC, right?
original's-
it is coming to the PC.
It is
yeah.
next year.
Okay, because then I might have to try it, because I know the original. It looms large in my mind, despite not having played it. I'm just aware of its sort of gravitational pull on the rest of the universe.
Well, I mean, if you look at Final Fantasy VII, I mean, the fact that Smash Brothers now has 2 Final Fantasy VII characters when no other external IP has more than one character, not even like, you know, Sega doesn't have 2 characters. And, you know, it's just not even a different Final Fantasy game, 2 from the same game. That's kind of how big it is in terms of like the fan praise, which is justified. The original game is incredible. The world is super immersive. I mean, it really is something else. But the combat in that game, as an RPG modern adaptation, I got to give them a lot of praise. That's why they made my list. For them to take this old school RPG and make it feel like the same game, but also make it feel like a modernized version of it, because you can still go into your menus to like kind of freeze everything as you're fighting in combat. It has a bit of hack and slash, but it still has like ability points that you earn through combat. And I don't know, it's really fresh. It's really well done. I'm enjoying it. It's gorgeous. It's just some of the cinematics and stuff are
Yeah,
you just gotta
it's a
laugh
game
at
that
it.
I'm
You gotta laugh at
excited
it.
to-
Like,
I'm excited for it to come to PC. I don't have a PS4 or 5 to play the remake on, but the original is one of my top 5, top 10 games of all time.
Yeah.
Just mostly nostalgia, but it was my first introduction into, you know, the JRPG genre, and it blew me away as someone who was playing, you know, Sonic the Hedgehog and stuff at the same time on a console. And then to fire that game up, I was just like, the level of the story, the depth, it really blew me away and made me excited for other JRPGs.
I think for a lot of us here in the West, it's probably the first real adult narrative, like real rich story that I ever played. I know that for a fact. Like, and I think that's true for a lot of people, which is why it stands out so much.
It's the first time that I cried at the death of a character.
Spoilers.
In any form of media. So it's a little late. Spoilers and all, but like there's a character
20
that
years
dies,
later.
and it's gut wrenching. Let me tell you, or at least it was to 12-year-old me or whatever.
To everyone,
But
yeah,
it hit me, and that was kind of an awakening moment that video games could have a deeper, larger narrative that went beyond, I have a goal, I have to, collect these rings or shoot that guy or chop that. Like, sure, but like this is a story with emotion. So I'm really excited to play the remake, and I'm interested to see this combat that you're talking about, because
it's really good.
It's very hard to translate the type of combat that we had, that turn-based combat from 1997 to now.
Sometimes it's hard to really talk about what it is about a classic game that makes us love it so much. Like we were talking about Half-Life, for example. Like you talk about why the original Half-Life was so groundbreaking, and you end up saying weird things like skeletal animation.
Yeah,
but it's true.
But when you talk about why Final Fantasy VII was so special, you end up saying things like this, like it had this human emotional component, like I cared about these characters, and that resonates, across generations. Everyone gets that.
1150 in chat is saying that the music is a big part of that too, and I agree 100%. He makes a good point, saying the Sephiroth theme, everyone knows it. I put that like right next to the Imperial March. They're like, when it comes to like the bad guy theme, it's like the Imperial March and Sephiroth's theme, and like that's the most iconic themes that come to mind. So yeah, good point.
And it's really interesting as well. We talk about how like the story and the music and all that stuff. It was, resonated so much with people. You go back just a couple years more, you have Earthbound, which is, again, weird JRPG, probably, weirder than Final Fantasy in certain respects.
It's quirky.
It just sticks. Yeah, it sticks with people. Like there's a whole community that went up around that.
Chrono Trigger is up there too.
Day, yeah, Chrono Trigger's. I have played the PC remake of that, and I've regretfully not finished it. But yeah, I mean, it's just there's just such rich games in that era, and to bring those back and modernize them in a way that's respectful, like it sounds like the Final Fantasy VII folks have, you know, it's just really neat.
That was the early days of like hardware that could, like, everyone was really pushing like, what can you even display on you know, these consoles, especially, you know, pre-PlayStation. And then the PlayStation kind of opened stuff up, but it's now we're at a point where we're well beyond those technical hurdles of even being able to put these graphics on the screen. Now it's like, how can we take these classic beloved titles from a period where we were just trying to get things to work and play and modernize them? And I think that's really exciting to see how well Square Enix has done with this particular one.
Because like I've seen video of the remake in action. It looks incredible. It really does look like a watershed moment. So yeah, I'm really excited to get it on PC.
Yeah, they blew it out of the water in that regard, but you'll see what I'm talking about with some of these cinematics.
Jake, I'm into the weird.
I know, but I'm a huge weeb. Don't get me. I'm a huge weeb too, but it just there's like a disconnect because the game looks so good, right? And it feels like it could be like this. Maybe it's because I just came off playing like other games like Control and God of War, where they had these really like amazing, you know, human moments that felt like normal humans, and then I'm playing this where it's just it's fine.
So is it kind of like watching a really good anime with a really bad English dub? Kind of the disconnect where it's like it's really good, but like
anime.
Okay, I'm gonna really so the parallel I'm thinking of, there's an anime called Fruits Basket, right? You may or may not be aware of it.
I know what it is.
So they're remaking that. It is. They're remaking it right now.
Okay.
And
really,
yeah, they're adapting the entire manga. The first one cut off somewhere in the middle of the actual story, but you know the production values are insane. Every like frame of animation is lovingly done. It's great. But it's really weird watching it. Like if you didn't grow up in the late 90s, early 2000s, and you weren't already into this, like the physical comedy aspects of it don't make any sense it's like, why is everybody fighting? Why is everybody like, engaging in, one-on-one karate duels every other, scene? And it's like, that's just how that's just how the source material was. And I don't know if it's like that in Final Fantasy VII, but I don't know. I personally enjoy it because it holds on. It's like, okay, this hasn't been stripped of all of its period soul, I guess.
Well,
so people who are new to it can still enjoy it, and people who are who are well versed in it from the original can also go back and say, oh, the nostalgia button, this is being pressed.
FF7R
that's what we're really after.
Yeah, it's a game that nails the nostalgia factor, but I think it's a story that anybody can jump in and enjoy it as well. That's the cloud size just get me every time. Okay, so any other games you guys want to bring up next, or should I present another one? Jeff, you got one? Chris?
I think I know which one. I was going to say, Jake, I think I know which one you're going to bring up, and I'm more than happy to dive into it. Because I had to think really hard about this. Like, between Alex and this game, I had to really debate. It's like, what was the most...
We're on the same page. I know what game...
Yeah.
Hades.
Yeah. Hades.
Chat's talking about it, too.
Yeah.
They want to hear about Hades.
Absolutely Hades. And this, again, gamer shame. I've never played a roguelike.
Ever. Nothing. Not Slay the Spire, nothing?
No. I did do Curse of the Necrodancer at PAX once.
Okay.
While it was on demo. I did not actually carry through. And yeah, we're gonna have to talk about. I'm gonna have to play that for our next or some side quest show in the future. But
I should play it as well. I think I own it.
Again, I was aware of the genre, but it was not something that grabbed me. And then again, it's like I heard it's like, okay, everybody's into Hades. Why is everybody into Hades? And you read Twitter threads late at night if people are like, oh man, I'm playing another game of Hades, another round of
Another
Hades.
run, yep.
It's like, what is it about this game that's getting people? And then I played it, and it's like, I started it, and then 5 hours later, it's like, oh, it's 5 hours later. Because it's hard. It's another game that's really hard to explain.
So you can compare it to any other roguelike where it's kind of action based, where you're running around. I call it the Diablo style combat, the action RPG top down. It's really fun, but I think what blows it out of the water for me more than anything else, it's just like number one in the roguelike genre is the fact that it has this. They took the Greek gods thing and they made it their own. They owned it. Like that's something that's been done so many times, but they were able to like capture all the gods, give them this personality that feels right, and just own it. And the game has some of the best voice acting like out there. Like it's not even it's just crazy how much dialogue there is and how rich the world is and how inviting it is and the art style. You just get pulled in. And like you said, 5 hours later, that's the combat as a big portion of it. But also you're like, well, what are they going to say next time I die? You don't look forward to dying in other games. But in that game, it's like, cool, I'm back in town. Nice.
Right. Yeah. It's like, I again, most games, you're not encouraged to die, but it's like this is something else that just gets it satisfies a primal lizard brain thing for me. It's like when the mechanics in the story are so closely aligned, like death makes perfect sense in this world. It's like it just
you're already in hell, so it's like
but it also reminds playing it, because you have all these boons and power-ups and all this other stuff that changes obviously from play to play. It's almost like building a deck in Magic the Gathering. If you've ever done a Magic the Gathering draft and you're like, oh, okay, well, I have these cards and I have to sort of figure out what's in this pack and where my deck is ultimately going to end up and how I'm going to power it with all these various lands and stuff. Like as you progress through Hades, it is a lot like that. And you can end up with, from experience, you can end up with atrocious character builds that don't really help any particular goal. But when you really think it through and synchronize your choice of weapon, your choice of boons, all these other power-ups, it really does feel like, I've really, really on to something.
You did it here. Or you finally get that perfect run where everything comes together, and it's like you've been waiting for that moment, and it feels like yes, this is it. Like I got the perfect whatever's shield slam run or whatever.
I have not had that perfect run yet. I've not beat the game.
It feels so good when you finally get this build where it's like I can't lose. Like this is amazing.
So can I ask you guys about Hades? Because I mean I am about 30 seconds away from buying this right now on but I gotta say, I feel like Diablo 3 really set a high standard. Say what you want about it at launch, but the gameplay modes added in Diablo 3's expansion made this perfect gameplay loop of carnage.
I'll agree with that.
Loot, customize, and with that memory fresh in my mind, am I gonna have fun in Hades?
You're gonna have way more fun because Hades is not a perpetual grind for gear and a restart of a season. It's a single run where you start out with basically nothing, and then you enter. A Greek god will offer you a random boon, so it's a power upgrade. It could be like more magical power, more movement speed, a variety of things. And then as you progress, you go down. You get to choose different pathways. So you'll go down one door to get more health, or to get maybe some money that you could spend on something else. And you're just continuously going through this, dungeon, building your character through choices and getting random options for random upgrades, trying to finish the entire run. And as you complete a run and kill a boss, you might unlock something new and get new weapon types. And there's, it's not like you're getting a different sword all the time. There's a finite number of weapons that exist, and you choose your run to start with each weapon. So it's different than Diablo. It's just has similar gameplay to like the way the game controls and the way that you fight and slay monsters. But the actual content loop is totally different, and it's single player only. It is a single player game.
All right, I'm in.
I can't recommend it enough. It's like Jeff said, it's borderline game of the year, but Alex made me cry. So that's where I drew the line.
Yeah,
Looks like it's on sale currently, so I'm in.
Yeah. Yeah,
These sales are tough, man.
Yeah.
If you haven't played it, even if again it's not punishing. Like I think a lot of people might think of a roguelike. You have this vague notion. It's like, okay, well, you die, you have to start all over again. And this game, Hades makes it. It's like, okay, you died, so what? You're just going to build up for the next time. This is an integral part of the game, and no big deal.
Right. It's like it actually.
It's not punishment.
Yeah, it's not at all.
I mean, it does feel bad when you get really far into.
Well, if you like,
yeah,
if you lose to Hades at the end, and it's like I almost had that, victory, because you get rewards for beating the game with or beating bosses with each weapon. So you kind of want to beat the whole game with every weapon. That's kind of
right
to max everything out. But yeah.
Yeah, that's dissatisfying, but it's like, there comes a point where you just like, no, I know, like the first time, again, spoilers, but like I think the third level boss or something, when I got into that room for the first time, that's as far as I've gotten. I was like, oh, I am not configured to do this well.
Right. And that's part of the process of learning what each boss does, learning how to approach them, and
right. So yeah, it rewards replay over and over and over again. You will never get bored of it.
Jeff, I got to say, you compared it to Magic the Gathering and building a deck, and now I need your Steam because I need to gift you Slay the Spire, because Slay the Spire, you're gonna fall in love with it. That was my game last year. That was last year, or maybe it was 2 years ago. I can't remember, but it was the roguelike that I just could not stop playing. Because that is literally cards, and you have a turn, the enemy has a turn, but you're building a deck as you go, and it's a beautiful game.
Yeah, I've watched people play it, and it's really good.
Yeah.
But I just never, picked it up for whatever reason, because we all have
so good.
Steam backlogs.
Yeah, I hear you.
But again, I think Chris said earlier something about time. It's like you can do a round of Hades in like an hour or less, and if that's all the time you have, it is perfectly fine with you stopping or whatever. It saves your progress. You don't lose where you're at if you have to quit the game. That's like what these more I imagine Slay the Spire is a lot like that too, where it's just you have these sort of bite-sized experiences where you can put as much time into it as you have and get as much done as you want. So that's a lot more manageable, I guess, for me than something like, and no offense, I'm sure Assassin's Creed Valhalla is beautiful and huge and beautifully realized at every millimeter, but it's just like I look at that and like, where am I ever going to find the time to finish it? So like
that's absolutely true.
Yeah, it's like it's a beautiful game, and I'm great, but it's I have an hour and
right, so you could do a couple runs of Hades. Yeah.
So
I will say Valhalla, since we brought it up, it is one of my top games of the year, and it is actually a game that I will play in chunks, because as long as I'm not focused on the main story, which oftentimes I'm not because I'm distracted by side quests, I'll just hop in for 30 minutes to an hour sometimes, and it's just like, well, what's in this area? Oh, let's go kill all of these people and get the loots and stuff. Like I will just do that for short bursts when I don't have 3-4 hours to really sink into the storyline, and it satisfies that need to go in and just hack and slash for a bit and then leave.
So, as someone who's never played an Assassin's Creed, is Valhalla gonna be like? I've never been interested in one. They don't look fun to me.
I haven't either. This is my first one. So I say, as someone who's never jumped into Assassin's Creed, this was a lot of fun. Like it hits a lot of notes that like the new Tomb Raider games really hit in the open world kind of way. But it has its own spin on that, and it's really a lot of fun, like to just kind of explore and Yeah, it's just a lot of. I like the combat. That's really what I'm at. Is like when I play a game like Skyrim, I'm always like, okay, new build. I'm gonna be, this brawler and go in and stuff, and then 20 hours later, I'm a stealth archer. Like always, stealth archer. And in this game, I can be that stealth archer, and then when someone sees me, I'll just murder them with my axe and my big hammer. And it's like, oh, I get to do those fun stealthy things, and then I get to feel like just an unstoppable badass. And it's kind of the best of both worlds there. And it's very open. You get to kind of pick your own thing, direction. You have these cult, I guess, members that you're trying to track down, and they show up, and they're part of the story but not a main thing, so they're always kind of around, and you're want to track them down. And it's like some days I'll get on, it's like, hey, I'm gonna go find out what this guy is and try and take him down. Like, he's a little bigger than me, a little more powerful than me, but I'll see if I can take him down. And that's my style of game. Sometimes I just want to hop in and go out and do my own thing, where I'm not locked down by a story or a narrative in that time period.
So is this
inevitably, anytime I get into a game like that, it's like, okay, I've got an hour, and then I've got 30 to 40 minutes of cutscenes and dialogue to slog through.
Right.
And I'm like, 20 minutes of playing the game. Hooray.
Yeah, Hades absolutely does not have that problem.
No.
I think I need to pick that game up.
It's
I need something else to jump
whenever
like
whenever you I guess I don't know what to call it. The setup phase of every game is like at most 5 minutes. I think I've only spent like 5 minutes. I'm sure you can put more time into it, but it's like, okay, I've spent 5 minutes getting the weapon I want, 5 minutes getting any money spent that I have, or like resources I need to get rid of.
Talk to various people in town. Yeah, like that's.
Yeah. Then go right back into it.
Yeah.
Nice.
I actually uninstalled Hades because it kept provoking me back in, and now it's gonna get reinstalled because I can't stop it.
Gotta have another fix.
But yeah, it really it's a really close competition for me. I would be happy saying Alex and Hades were co-best games of the year, just in different ways.
I would agree. Different genres for sure. What else is on the list? Eric, you got anything else we haven't talked about?
We haven't talked about Doom yet.
Ooh.
And I gotta say, there's one criteria for this list that I feel is really important. What games have we actually finished? Right? Because I mean, in
Doom makes the list.
In this really enviable job that I have, I like pick up a new game every week and try it out, and I fall in love with something new every week. But yeah, I look back on 2020, and Doom was the game that I finished, and part of my thought is why, like the story is ridiculous. Patently ridiculous. You talk about like Final Fantasy being ridiculous. It doesn't hold a candle.
Doom
to
embraces it. Final Fantasy is.
We are talking about Doom Eternal.
I'm sorry, yes, Doom Eternal specifically.
Right. Yeah, I actually haven't played Doom Eternal. Is it even more over the top than
it's a lot of fun?
The 2016 Doom?
Yes, it's a completely different game.
Really?
Yes. Game combat is so different.
I have strong opinions about this.
Really?
So
okay,
let's talk about this gameplay, because the gameplay is really what I love about it, because it makes you feel like end of Super Metroid, like I am just a god of this world. I am hovering in the air for minutes at a time. This arsenal of weaponry is flying from me. I'm making strategic decisions on the fly. It is a mental workout.
Demons fear
you. Exhilarating.
Yeah.
And yet at the same time, you're so powerful, yet the game is so mean to you that it is a challenge at the same time. The ending level, Final Sin, is just a high point of this year for me.
Oh, man.
The skyscraper ending battles with Cyberpunk, with the cyber demons,
Spoilers.
are wow, so good. Hey, if I'm spoiling this late in the year, you deserve it.
Well, it just came out for free on Microsoft Game Pass, so I'm gonna be installing that.
So
right now,
I did finish Doom Eternal, but I finished it because I did not want the game to get the best of me. I didn't finish it
Yes.
because
Yes.
it was not I am enjoying this. It's because it's like I am not going to let this game crush me under its demon heel.
No, absolutely. I
don't know. Like I played that game to the end because it provoked so much rage in me.
Oh, the
And
music.
it's just
is
like,
so
you
good.
know what? I know I'm going to be mad at this every minute I play it. And I'm just going to feed on the
mad
anger.
because you were playing against a marauder. Every
Yes.
time. That's what got me every time.
Yep.
Like, it seems like every other, no matter how powerful these other enemies were, it's like, okay, I can take them. I can take them. But these marauders, if you haven't played the game, so it's this big guy with an axe, and he's got a close attack and a far attack, and you kind of got to balance that. But then every now and then he summons this like demon wolf who's just going to come up and just like slaughter you, and you have to be paying attention to the marauder and the wolf.
Oh, this sounds so fun. This is my kind of game.
And he just summons another.
Oh, I'm so excited.
And also, you can't just like shoot this guy any which way. You can't do damage to him any which way. You have to be at a certain distance and wait for a certain in-game event to happen. And it's that probably put my blood pressure up 10 points.
The first time I encountered him, I was like, okay, well, this is a boss fight at least. It's not. That's just a regular enemy that you'll encounter over and over again.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, guys. How many times have you heard people complain about a game just being full of bullet sponges? Like, criticize the game for what you want, but it's not like the enemies are not bullet sponges.
I love it. I love the game at the end of the day. It was a very different Doom coming from 2016 and literally all the other Dooms. But I'm the kind of guy that usually, I have a favorite weapon. And I'm going to go in, and I can usually, I know what I'm doing with that. I know how to take down any enemy, and I'll have, one other backup, two other backups. Sometimes I need a launcher or whatever. This game, no. One, you don't have the ammo to do that.
Right.
Oh, this sounds.
You have to cycle through, your weapons because every enemy has specific strengths and weaknesses specific to the weapons you're using. Plus, you have multiple different abilities that you absolutely must be using if you're playing this game at a difficulty level other than super easy. You have a combat cycle that you have to go through. It's not just run and gun.
It does to kind of turn into this actions per second thing. It's like if you're not pressing as many keys as possible, every waking or every living minute, you're gonna die.
Yep. If your ability is ready to go and you aren't popping it, then you're missing out. You're probably dead.
I think I did wear out a keyboard on this game, so you have a point.
You guys really sold me on it, just because I'll be honest, in Doom 2016 the combat loop wasn't interesting to me. It was too repetitive. It was like run, stomp enemy's head, get heal, kill, run, stomp enemy's head, get heal. It was very just always the same. And it sounds like the combat loop in Eternal is more dynamic, and that's sounds great. Sounds great to me.
You need a strategy,
has a wider range.
A lot of fights.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I liked 2016 is one of the great games of all time for me.
Super fun.
It was a breath of fresh air compared to all the other shooters around it at the time. It's like
our last Doom was Doom 3 before that. Is that right?
It had been a minute.
And that was such a different, flashlight gun. No, it's not Doom to me.
No,
we don't talk about Doom 3.
Yeah. What is that?
No, 2016 was great. It was such a breath of fresh air compared to everything that came around it. But yeah, Eternal is ostensibly in the same universe, but it's a completely different game in terms of both mechanics and the atmosphere and the feel of it. So I think it's like, if you got into Daft Punk, for example, it's like, oh, Discovery. And then Random Access Memories, completely different records, same band, completely different records. You have to appreciate them for what they are. They're great in their own way, but it's not a strong continuity.
So, do any of you guys use
the storyline?
No.
Let's be real.
But that was the
I
weird
think-
thing about Eternal, though, is because it put that so front and center. It tried to flesh out so
did.
much of the rest of the
It
plot.
did. And
It's
I was like, did I miss a lot in 2016?
Yeah,
Was there
exactly,
A lot of
exactly.
story that I was missing.
Yeah, it's like I don't, like 2016 just sort of raised its middle finger to that. It's like you're just a guy with a gun, and you're a god. And you're gonna move really fast. And you're gonna kill a lot of demons.
We'll touch
and
on the story here and
yeah.
there, but it's just a vehicle.
Eternal has this whole canon to it. And it's a little.
Mhm.
It didn't really land for me, and that's why it's not on my best games list. It just didn't. It's a fun game. Don't get me wrong. It will make you feel strong emotions, but it's not. It didn't quite get to the level of my top 3.
Man, I can't be the only one out there who read every single one of those story fragments that it gave me. It was like this terrible soap opera that I couldn't stop watching. I loved finding those story things.
Yeah. Oh, I do that too. It's like I read all the lore. It's just it doesn't it doesn't require explanation.
Jeff, did you read all the lore and Control? I need to know because there's so much.
Wow.
The thing is, you have to understand what's going on in that game. You have to listen to all the like reel-to-reel tape recorders and read all the folders, and because like it's not going to tell you otherwise. Actually, I'm afraid it would not make a whole lot of sense otherwise.
I got the gist of it without reading the folders.
Yeah.
I consumed everything else, but
there's definitely a whole universe there.
Yeah,
but yeah,
that's another not 2020 title. Great game.
No, I had to go back and look. It's like, was Control 2020? And no, it's not. But
Control
it's
Ultimate
definitely.
Edition?
Well, it doesn't really count
Yeah, that's
for our
true.
purposes.
If anybody in chat has games that we did not mention, feel free to mention them. But yeah, we are coming up on an hour here as we've been just chatting away about all our favorite games of the year. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to mention. Oh, Valorant is a game I wanted to mention. Valorant is an honorable mention for me in terms of a competitive multiplayer only game. I enjoyed it. It's weird because like all my friends, we were just grinding this game. When it dropped, we were playing every chance we got with each other to just get together and have a few games at the end of the night to squad up. And then at once, we all just like stopped playing. No one said anything to each other. Like we just like got burnt out of the grind. I feel it is definitely that stressful competitive kind of atmosphere. And if you're trying to grind the ladder and everything, but as a competitive title, I really like Valorant. I had a lot of fun with it. Nice to see Riot Games finally have a second game properly, because they were just Riot Game really, until recently, and now they've got all kinds of stuff coming out. So that makes, I guess, kind of my list as well.
Yeah, I want to compliment Valorant for how well it runs. I mean, it's not the most graphically demanding game out there, but I love it when a game is clearly tuned for high frames per second, especially a competitive game like that.
Mm-hmm.
They focused on the right things there. Just low latency servers, real high frames per second. It's really nice to play on a good PC, and it's fine on a regular PC.
Yeah, that's the thing. You can get amazing frame rates. Like it really does run beautifully, just like CS:GO. It feels like a very similar build to CS:GO, where it's just going to run super well. Deep Rock Galactic.
That's important for those kinds of games,
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Competitive FPS titles, like
it's essential.
It kind of needs to run on a potato.
Well, how many games are you going to be?
Hardware is going to hit those FPS.
Yeah, we have a 360 hertz display. How many games can run that? You think about CS:GO, you think about Valorant. Those are the games that need it, right? Who's the market for that game? What games can run it? Boom.
Now.
So speaking of games that don't get good frame rates, Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020.
Ooh, yeah.
Oh, that's another good one.
What a transition.
Is it a game though, or is it a simulator?
It is. It's not really a game, but I spent a whole lot of time in Flight Simulator this year because I love to fly, and it's like again something we can't do right now.
You go to Japan yet?
Doing it right now. But yeah, I think. Just the sheer ambition of it's like, okay, we're going to take the mapping data of the entire world. We're going to do real-time dynamic weather. And, we're going to put all the other planes in the world on your map. Like it's just the sheer ambition of that game or that experience, I guess. The fact that it works at all is incredible, and the fact that it works as well as it does, it can be relaxing to be like, okay, well, I'm just going to fly from point A to point B in these familiar locations I know, and there's very, it is. I'm not going to say it's like completely accurate. There are certain things I've read about the sim
sure
aspect of it that are not like one-to-one to how the actual plane flies or whatever. It's like the air speeds are weird, but it's calming. It's a very calming experience, until you shut off like the main breaker of your 747 and you have no cockpit power whatsoever, and the plane is completely unresponsive. Like, well, how well can I glide a 747?
Make a water landing, guys.
I considered flying to BlizzCon because they couldn't go this year, and that's my like one guaranteed trip every November. I was like, I should just fly there. I didn't do it, but I know a lot of people flew into the hurricanes, which is
You can't do that in a lot of games.
No,
it's like, oh, there's a hurricane happening in real life. I'm gonna fly into it. Pretty cool.
Yeah, and that's
I really liked seeing how much the game grew, because one of the first PC games I played was actually on a Mac back in like 94, 95.
Poverty.
And it was one of like the second flight simulator game that came out, and it was like, it blew my mind at that time. It was like, I'm flying a plane, like, holy crap. And now just seeing it and it being almost photorealistic, it's just like, oh my god. And actually having, and I had a dinky little joystick with two buttons on it and like one trigger, and that's what you played on.
Yeah,
and now it's like I have this whole HOTAS system.
Right.
It's like,
it's a different beast. Yeah,
a completely different beast. But it's beautiful, and even if it doesn't run at 60 frames a second, it's one of the very, very few titles where I'm fine playing at 30. Like if I can hit 30 to 40, I'm really good, because I'm flying up in the air just looking at the clouds go by, man. Like,
and if you have a G-Sync monitor, if you have a G-Sync or FreeSync monitor, it looks perfectly fine at 30 to 40 frames per second, because nothing about it moves that fast. It's not like a dog fighting.
My Duo runs at about 40, 45, 50.
It's not like a dog fighting game where you have to have super high frame rates like an Ace Combat or whatever.
Right.
So
or someone in chat mentioned another great game, Squadrons. Which I haven't put enough time into.
No, I have not.
They had a bug at the very beginning with flight sticks, where the dead zone was huge.
It's awful, unplayable.
And so I was auto correcting, like just overcorrecting so much. It's like, I'm not enjoying it.
It sucks because it burned.
They fixed it. And
same. I'm in the exact same boat where I was so excited for it, and then it just kind of felt. And other games, I think probably Hades came out or something, and it's like, well, moving on.
It's definitely on my list for games that I need to give more time to.
Same.
I at least want to finish the campaign.
Yes.
Yeah. Because it speaking of games that press the nostalgia button, like TIE Fighter for DOS was one of the first games.
Yes.
That was like one of my. Well, I guess that was my first. It wasn't exactly a 3D game. I guess it was a 3D game.
Yeah.
It was like the most primitive possible, low polygon kind of 3D game.
It did the job.
Yeah, it did. And it was, again, another formative gaming experience for me. So it's like seeing that fully realized world with all this sophisticated lighting and stuff, and, pitch perfect reproductions of the cockpits and things. It's just, it's really.
Yeah. That real just feeling like launching a fighter. And just that feeling of taking off, and you're sitting there it's like, oh my god, this is the Star Wars I want to be
that's
in.
the game that makes me want to set up my Vive again. It's like, because it does have the VR support, and I have not tried that yet.
I haven't either.
But I mean, Deep Rock Galactic was mentioned in chat as well. I have not played that.
Unfortunately, I haven't either.
There's a lot of games to be played. A lot of games.
Have you guys played Fall Guys yet this year?
Ooh, Fall Guys.
Oh, yeah.
I like it.
I did not.
You didn't like it, or you didn't play it?
I didn't play it.
Okay.
It made a lot of
cheap fun.
Yeah.
Kind of game you play with your friends or something.
It's
I know it made.
And
I was reading everybody's end of year lists to sort of prepare for this, and it ended up in like some top threes.
yeah.
I'm not sure about that, but
Well,
it does sound like a fun game.
It's
it's like a happy hour game, right? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
like we can't go out with our coworkers for happy hour anymore, so it's Friday evening.
Yep.
We'll play some Fall Guys and just laugh.
it's
And
it's
it's
so
extremely low
non-committal.
barrier of
Yeah,
entry.
it is. It's
Yeah.
it's just really easy and nice to pull up. I think about when when I first got into PUBG, when PUBG was like new and hot and everybody was playing that. That's kind of like what we do, because it's like, who cares if you win or lose? It's just kind of like chill. It's very different than I feel like the pacing of that game is very different than Fortnite, because there's just the map feels so much bigger and emptier. There's so much downtime. It's just like a nice way to chat with my friends. And Fall Guys really kind of like owns that to a new level almost. But it's probably the best party game of the year.
Anyone can play it. Like it's like anyone who's not a serious, like, I guess we're probably the more serious gamers, but there are a lot of people that just play games.
We're like grandpas playing games now. Then we're the old men.
Yeah, and that's it's true. But like I love a game that's got such low barrier of entry that like my friends who aren't really PC gamers, they can just jump in and play with me. It's like, okay, that's a lot of fun, because it gives me another way to connect with people, especially in a time where it's so hard to physically interact and hang out with your friends. To find a game like that where it's like we're mostly just on Discord chatting and having a good time, and just trying to make our way through the level. I didn't make it. Well, I guess I'm sitting out. Time for me to go make a drink.
Exactly.
Whatever kind of thing.
Among Us was like that too.
Also Among Us.
Among Us. My online group of friends we did a few rounds of it, and it was just so interesting because it doesn't really have a lot of rules. There are things you have to do in order to make it progress, but like I think we played one round of it and we were like, okay, this is when you can talk, this is who can talk. It was just such an emergent experience. It was so organic, and it was like, oh yeah, this is the sort of thing that would happen if everybody was in the same room and we were just like playing. I don't even know, like 1,000 blank white cards
Werewolf.
or something.
Yeah, Werewolf or
it
Mafia.
Reminds me of Werewolf.
It is. It's the same game, really, right?
Mafia.
It's a game of bullshit. It really is. Just like
It definitely is.
It
definitely is.
Who can be better at this? You talk your way out of stuff.
That was another one where you don't have to have. I think it even runs on mobile devices. So so you can just anybody can dive into it, and that's great.
Perfect quarantine game. It really is a game that capitalized on the current, real world situation, where I think it's been out for a while and it just kind of blew up out of nowhere, right? It was out it's not even a launch from 2020, it's 2018, I want to say. So hey, good for the devs.
It definitely had its moment. It's still having a moment. So
and a really small dev team. I think it was like 3 people. That made the whole thing, and like that's I've got a soft spot for any small teams like that can make a game that hits game of the year.
Like Concerned Ape with
this.
Stardew Valley, you same thing, right? Absolute legend. The game's continued to have amazing support. I've been playing 1.5 with my wife a lot lately and a couple friends. But I want to transition to talk about looking ahead. What are you guys most excited for? If you have to pick 1 to 3 titles, Eric, we're starting with you for 2021. What are you looking forward to?
Oh, that's easy. Resident Evil Village. Oh my goodness, everything about that game. I love it. I want it now. I'm not. My real entry to the series was Resident Evil 4. I remember my college friends loading up the GameCube, passing the controller back and forth in that game whenever we got too stressed out. I loved everything about the setting to the ridiculous gameplay. And Village is like going back to that, man. Have you seen the trailers?
I mean, isn't the vendor going to be in it? The what are you buying? What are you selling? Isn't he? I think he's going to be in Village.
I think they've teased him. Yeah,
that's awesome.
I love it. And what worries me though is that they're keeping the perspective of Resident Evil 7, that real like claustrophobic first person view, and Resident Evil 7 broke me. That is a terrifying game. Wow. I like horror games, and that one was rough. That is a excellent game, don't get me wrong, but real bad for my blood pressure.
it's the first Resident Evil game I've had to stop and like walk away from because it bothered me too much. The first half of that game was too much for me. The second half wasn't as bad, in my opinion. The first half was too real. It was anyways, like we could do a whole podcast on horror games. And maybe we will. Maybe we will in the future because it's a fun topic. Chris, how about you? What are you looking forward to?
Honestly, I'm having a hard time looking past 2020. I still got Cyberpunk.
Oh, you just want 2020 to stay? You like it so much?
Oh, hey.
No, I just can't see past this cloud of 2020. But if I had to say, I'd say Far Cry 6. I'm looking forward to that. I love the Far Cry games. They're a lot of fun. But I think Back 4 Blood is like my real.
Did you play the alpha
game?
Did you play the alpha?
No.
Oh my god, it's so good.
I didn't get it.
You should have told me.
I should have, but I loved Left 4 Dead and getting the original developers to create a spiritual successor to those games. I'm just so excited.
It is Left 4 Dead 3. Like it is.
Yeah.
Literally Left 4 Dead 3.
Valve can't say 3, so it's these guys doing it.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean,
and I'm stoked because it sounds like they've added some new stuff to it, and I'm 4.
They can do 4. They can't do 3.
But no, I think that's my like. I'm excited to get the band back together and go fight some zombies. Basically,
it's perfect. I'll say that. Jeff, how about you?
I was just panic scrolling through articles.
I didn't warn you. I warned the others.
In 2021, because I don't really know. But Far Cry 6, I'll keep an eye on Far Cry 6. Because like Chris, I like that series a lot. But I was disappointed by Far Cry 5.
It was disappointing a bit. Hoping 6 redeems.
Like I got into it sort of late. Like the first game in the series I ever played was Far Cry 4, and Far Cry 4 was a blast. I loved that game. The set, just everything about that game, the setting, the atmosphere, like the villain, it was. If you haven't played it, you should play it. I think it would still hold up well today, which for is an achievement for kind of a cheesy shooter. But it looks like they're going back in that direction with Far Cry 6, and I'll keep an eye on that. But again, I have a Steam backlog a mile long. I have all this stuff I need to finish, and so I'm open to serendipity. If a game comes out that I enjoy the concept of, it's like we'll probably just pick it up and see how it goes.
We should really have a podcast on the guilty pleasure games that are keeping us from playing all these new cool ones.
Yeah, that's a good topic. Yeah. Well, for me, I was going to say Back 4 Blood because I'm really lately just been grinding co-op games. But since you took it away from me, I'm going to give it to another, an indie studio. And I'm a huge fan of this survival game called The Forest. They're making a sequel called Sons of the Forest. It's actually a prequel. And they just released the trailer last week. And I had been very skeptical as to what this prequel was going to be, because this is a tiny studio, right? And it looks like it's the same game redone, new story in a previous setting with some really cool stuff, because in the forest there's all these weird mutants on an island, and it's like crafting, build a base building, the whole deal, but in a horror setting. And it looks like these mutants are in some of them are in a different state, like a more human state, because they were once human kind of deal, and it looks like some of them might still be retaining their humanity, where you could even speak to I don't know. This is a lot of speculation. But anyways, if a trailer can get me so excited that I'm looking into it and trying to figure out what the story is, and for this little indie game that I've put hundreds of hours into, yeah, that's got to be my number one for the year. Sons of the Forest looks cool. Should be interesting in 2021. But yeah, guys, this was a lot of fun. We just kind of rambled on about all kinds of things, and I think the goal for this show is to have these kind of conversations, but in the future they'll be a little bit more targeted. A show with Eric about horror games sounds really like a blast, and Jeff and I are going to be sitting down to talk about rhythm games like DDR, even fitness games that are in that mix, because something that we both are really into. So many conversations to come in the future.
Looking forward to it.
Any shout outs anybody would like to make? This is our last show of the year.
Oh.
Nothing. ready for 2021.
Shout out
They're just
to-
like,
shout
this
out
year
to my
sucked.
wife for getting me through 2020. Like
Okay.
I've had to be locked down, and my wife, my cats. That has just been
Yep.
what's gotten me through 2020, and all this great hardware. So I'd be lying if I said I didn't spend most of my time in lockdown in front of my computer. So.
That's why nothing's in stock, because we're all in that exact same boat trying to get the next upgrade. But hopefully things will normalize in 2021. Guys, I thank you all for tuning in to our second episode of ROG Sidequest. We'll see you next year. GG's and take care.